Hello, everyone, and welcome to Politics in Conflict show. So glad to be here with you guys. I know it's been a few days since I came on the air. I was busy with some stuff preparing some research that I was doing, and I will provide you some info regarding what I was looking into. So down the road as we move forward. So anyway, so good to be with you guys here, and I look forward to having my own conversation with you. So, what we're going to be talking about today are some very key topic that I believe you need to know ahead of time as things evolve. And I will detail and explain everything. What the two main events that they are interrelated. One of them has to do with India now accepting to trade with Russia in rupees. Okay. And the second one has to do with Russia's announcements, of course, of only accepting the rubles from Europe in return for the delivery of gas. Well, those are main. Uh, it's not a topic. It's very crucial to understand the significance of something like this. Once again, I'll put my geopolitical analyst hat and put this within the context of the shifting of geopolitical landscape. And that tells me a lot right there, because one thing you need to always remember is that when it comes down to the shifting of geopolitical landscape, it's not only limited to military aspects, okay? The economic aspect, the financial aspects are part of that shift as well. And usually it plays a role because we all know how history went back in after World War II and how the US ended up where it's ended up. So I'm going to detail all this. But before I dig deeper into all this, let me mention some key points that I'm going to be covering in this talk today. One of them is G7 declaration. The second one is Sergei Lavrov's Russian foreign minister visits to China today, and his visit to India tomorrow, which I found very interesting. Third one, as I said, is India is set to bypass the US dollar for trade with Russia. Those are very significant. Well, what I found, I'll say this. Thank you so much for Steven Riziak. Thank you very much for your super sticker. I appreciate it. So I'm going to be switching between screens here and there. So I want to say thank you to you first. As I said earlier, what I found very interesting is about the Lavrov's visit to India on Thursday. Guess who's going to be there at the same time? Is the foreign minister of Britain. Her name is Tass. She is not well-to-do when it comes down to understand the dynamics, which is very pathetic, knowing that the Russian prime minister is already going to be in India, and she's going to be going there. Well, here's what to expect, is that India is going to roll the red carpet to Lavrov, not to the foreign secretary of Britain, which is, I found it very odd. Diplomatically, that's not how you behave anyway. So let me jump into talking about the first topic, the rubles. So the G7 and the announcements. So basically what G7 announced last week, which I'm sure you were familiar with, and I did mention something about that last time, they rejected a demand from the Russian president as far as the payment of Russian rubles. I was like, well, hold on a second. Who are you to dictate to another sovereign state whether to accept payments or not? So the Europeans trying to say, no, we're gonna reject this demand. Russia said, whatever, who cares? If you want gas, you're gonna pay for it. You're not gonna get it for free. Anyway, that's how it works. So you want the gas, you're gonna pay for it in rubles, not in euros. This is a very interesting point for you to understand. Why is that? And the reason being because Russia already has reserves. Okay, it has about 600. To my what I found out in my research, it has about 630 or 640 billion dollars in reserves. Now, out of that 640, there's 153 in gold. And once again, this is very important for you guys to understand as to why Russia end up asking. If European wants gas from Russia, because Russia supplies about 40%, if they want gas, they're going to pay for it in rubles, because the Europeans will be forced to go and purchase the rubles, which does what? It increases the value of the rubles. That's usually how it works, because it gives Russia now, because Russia said, no, we're not going to accept euros. We're going to accept the rubles. So Europeans rather, will have to go and purchase millions and millions and millions of rubles for them to pay for gas if they want it at that price. Mind you that the United States has already cut a deal with the Europeans, except that the Europeans don't realize it yet. They're going to be paying 10 times the amount they were paying to the Russians. Could it be that's what this whole thing is all about? Maybe, maybe not. So, but here's the thing. The Russian president, when he asked for the payments, is to drive up the value of the rubles in crisis like what we're going, what Russia is experiencing right now. Because remember, following the initiation of the military operations in Ukraine, and the imposition of the sanctions by the West, the ruble's value tanked, like what you would expect. Because that's what happens with the financial market. Currencies usually within the next 2 days after some bad events or whatever you want to call it, they tend to tank. Then they can recover later. It might not. So in this case, within 2 days, the value of the rubles tanked a little bit. So, and this is where I believe was a shrewd move by Putin to decide, okay, for our customers in Europe, they need to switch from the euro into the rubles. Then they pay in rubles. And basically this initial switch, they will be propping up, the Russians in this case, will be propping up the rubles. Well, do you blame them? It's their country. I mean, they have to figure out how to deal with what's going on with the chaos and the sanctions that have been imposed on them. That's just common sense. The other aspects of it has to do with India. Well, I don't find that very, very interesting. Why, again, is India very important? It is important because India's size, the market size, with over 1 billion people, so between India and China together and trading with Russia, Russia can make up the difference that it will lose with Europe. Because no matter how you look at it, you cannot, any logical person who thinks logically, you cannot ignore the sheer size of both China on one hand and India on another. Now you can see why Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, is heading out to India tomorrow. And I will provide you guys an update about the details once that visit it happens tomorrow. So that I found it very interesting. The interesting aspects of this is that India now is willing to bypass the US dollar. But why? Because they're seeing where the trends are going. So they're not going to want to be left behind. And this is why, and I'm an advocate for peace, of course. This is why it makes perfect sense for India and China to work out their differences regarding the border disputes and resolve that peacefully. They'll come out of it as winners if they play their cards right. Now, of course, there are those who say, well, you criticize America, whatever. No. That's nonsense. What I criticize is the irrelevancy of American foreign policy. It's because I am concerned. It's because I care to see it going derailed towards a path that's going to lead only to destruction. That is the reason why. So the way I see the logic of how countries behave, as I said again, I put my geopolitical analyst hat and see where the trends are heading. This is what India is looking at. Mind you also that the meeting that took place today in China between Lavrov and the foreign minister Wang Yi, that address about the reconstruction of the other country where we just left. We can't say the word here, I believe. You all know why. And by which they want to reconstruct that country after 20 years of destruction. So you can just see the trends. It just doesn't take a genius to figure this out. It's common sense. Now, the important factor has to do with the list of the 23 countries that are now creating new swap lines outside the US dollar. It's very important. And I will provide you, by the way, a link to where that information is. So, as we always say, you'll have the receipt from me. But here is the interesting aspects of those 23 countries. Among them is, I'm not going to list all of them, but they're China, Russia, India, and surprisingly, some Eurozone countries like Germany, France, and even UK. This means what? Basically, when you have Germany and France and UK, all it means one thing, is that the Eurozone itself is abandoning the US dollar and preparing for the transition to a global banking system, or central banking system, that is. And this is why I said, when it comes down to geopolitical shifts, the financial aspects of it is part of that shift as well. And to facilitate the transfer of these currencies and swap line, there needs to be some sort of a bank big enough, sufficient enough in size and stature to aid in this very monumental task, shall we say, because it's not an easy thing. It is not an easy thing to set up a financial system. The United States has been working on this since World War II. After 1944, when the Bretton Woods system, by which is set the foundation, shall we say, for the US dollar to be what it is. Well, it looks like now the days are numbered. You know, it saddens me as an American, and I'll say it because I'm an American. Don't ever forget this, guys, that, you know, whatever those who put those crazy comments, that's nonsense. You know, it concerns me because I understand the impact of what it means once the value of the dollar goes down, what it's going to do here at home. Poverty is going to happen so quick on American soil here. And yet some of us Americans are oblivious to what's going on. And it concerns me as an American. Yes. Will I wish that things would have been worked out differently in a peaceful way? Yes, of course. Unfortunately, there are those behind the scenes that push in chaos. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. That's very, very unfortunate. So let me go back to my point about the size of this bank that's need to deal with this monumental task. Well, don't be surprised, because about a year ago, China, along with the BRICS nations, and BRICS includes Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. Okay? They issued what they call the bank, loaned money to a new financial institution. And this financial institution, they established it themselves and labeled it the BRICS Bank. And this bank was created with the intention, and the sole intention is to bypass the US dollar and allow free trade to occur between nations without the need to trade for the dollar first. Just to break it down for you to understand, I'll take country A, I'll take country C, okay? But for country A to trade with country C, that country A has to go through country B, which is the US dollar. That's how the transaction is done. This is what exactly Russia is asking now from Europe. Bypass country B, no more going through the US dollar. This is what India is doing. Bypass the US dollar, trading in rupees directly with Russia. And that's why what Saudi Arabia is considering with accepting payment in the Chinese yuan currency instead of the dollar, which is a major thing to happen on the global financial system. Anyway, that was the whole point of this idea, to bypass the trade for dollar with the dollar, and to format under this also the petrodollar, because that is where the key is. The strength of the US dollar is tied to the petrodollar, because most of the oil transactions, as you know, is conducted in the US dollar. This is why the financial system in the West was rattled. Here in the United States, in Wall Street, was rattled when Saudis made that announcement, because that's a seismic shift if that to happen, and I do believe it will happen. So the new BRICS bank will function both as a bank of international settlement, known as BIS, and also as a lender of last resort. And what does it mean? Simply, it means that it will eliminate both the need for the US dollar's dominance in both, in the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, and in the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. That basically rendered the dominance of the dollar useless. The only thing that stands in the way for the world's financial rejection of the US dollar is the wavering trust that the Saudis, and OPEC for that matter, have with the US in assuring that all oil transactions are conducted in the US dollar. And why is this important again? Because if you take Saudi Arabia and China, what do they share in common? What do they have in common? There is one aspect they do have in common. One of them is Saudi Arabia, top producer of oil, that means exporter, and China, top importer of oil. So you can just see the concerns in the West, especially the United States, with the move like this. So if you are to add this into the 23 countries that now are moving into that direction, you can just see that the days of the dominance of the US dollar on the horizons are coming to an end. I know I've always get criticized for saying this. Oh no, Dr. O, the dollar is always strong. It's going to maintain. Yes, of course he will maintain it as of today. We're not talking about tomorrow. We're talking about the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years. It's coming. And this is where I see the trends. Oxy, thank you very much for your super sticker. I appreciate it. This is where we see the change coming. Yeah, I get used to being criticized for that, but I'm not going to hold back for saying the truth, because it's the truth. And also because I'm concerned to see where that's going. Because once again, if you happen to be an American watching this video, if the dollar goes down, we'll become poor overnight. Do you think the American society can sustain that? We have never been through hardships. We don't know what it's like. Let alone, we are a country of only 200 years, which is nothing in comparison to other civilizations. That's where I'm coming from. So the idea that this OPEC aspects of it will be a major problem to the US, because the petrodollar has been dominating since the 1970s. And we all know what happened in the 1970s after the US dropped out of the gold in return for the dollar and requested from Saudi Arabia to sell all its oil transactions in the US dollar. But as the world has seen recently, even Saudi Arabia is hedging towards a new global system. And that's why it went publicly stated their desire to the US are open for renegotiations as far as their relationship. So here is the thing. What started in September of last year, when the agreement was made between Russia and China, to end the dollar stronghold over oil and how it was purchased, the past 14 months have seen also a momentous rush towards setting up the infrastructure to replace the dollar completely in global transactions. And now with these 23 countries, as I said, including those from the BRICS and the Eurozone countries, which there are about 19 of them. I'm not going to list all of them, from Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, Slovakia, Slovenia, Germany, France. You got the idea. They all, both the BRICS and the Eurozone, are preparing for the new swap line outside the dollar hegemony. So will it be fair? And I think it will be fair to say, because that's the way I see it, and I don't shy away from or trying to word things certain ways that can fit the narrative for whomever. I don't do that, and you guys know that. So I think it is fair to state that the fuse has been lit on the dollar's death rattle, and when has changed into the now. So this is where I see it going. But also we have to think in terms of what led, as I always say, if I am to present an argument, I have to present both sides of the argument. This is what we've always done here, guys. Some of you guys been with us since day one. And I appreciate your support, your continued support. The other argument is that this didn't happen overnight. The decline of the US has been in the making for the way back a couple of years ago. And I will go as far as 2008 with the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis. What did we do? And I was, of course, I am not in the government. I don't have that kind of power to influence policies. But I was personally, and for me, in clear conscience to say, I disagree with this policy. And the policy was, when the administration back then made a decision to bail out the big corporations, why will I bail them out? Let them file for bankruptcy. They caused the problem. Why are we bailing them out of taxpayers' money? And that's when the issue started back then. This is not about yesterday. That's been in the making. Let alone the printing of money. We print money right or left like there is no tomorrow. You can't be printing money out of thin air. Somebody will have to pay for that, because that money will have to be paid back one way or another. And when you add over $30 trillion in national debt, you can just see where things are headed. And this is what I kind of don't get it. Why some of us Americans are so oblivious to what's going on. I mean, you don't have to be a financial guru to understand this basic stuff. This is like economic 101, basic stuff. We're not talking about David Ricardo's theory or Adam Smith's theory and all that. No, and I am not qualified to talk about that kind of stuff. But the basic understanding. And most of us are, like, as I always say, oblivious to what's going on. But here is another issue that the US is contributing to it itself, is the employment of these sanction tools that overused to the point of being abused as a weapon to punish its opponent. And this is why I didn't get it when the White House mentioned that, well, we might sanction China. Well, hold on a second. Do you have any idea what the consequences will be? I'm not saying you'll be scared of China. I'm not saying you don't challenge China. I'm not saying, all I'm saying is, did you think through if China reciprocates with sanctions on the US? Do you have any idea how much items, commodities going to be costing? And this is what shocks me the most. Those policymakers, they don't think of the scenarios. As I always say, they're thinking of the end of their nose. That's all. They can't think far enough. So this abuse of sanctions, it becomes like, Anjay, thank you so much for your super sticker. Appreciate it. I don't quite get it. Policymakers supposed to think for the welfare of citizens, not their own pockets. That's what we call the public servant. You work for us, not the other way around. But the abuse of US sanctions became kind of, it's leading many number of people affected by the US dollar's dominance increases. And this is where Russia and China are looking for a new financial system to strip, and I use the term carefully, to strip the dollar of its strength, because that's their objective. Yet, we need to ask the fundamental two key questions. Can it be done? Okay, and the second one, can it be a promise for greater financial independence from the US dollar? And I did argue some of this in my previous writings, and I'll put a link for you guys for two articles that I wrote, and I wrote them a couple years ago, predicting what's going on right now. So before I conclude, I'm going to ask you the key question at the end, but let me just conclude this one here first. Against this backdrop of all what's going on right now, and this is my personal opinion, guys, I argue that the decline of the US dollar, given the amount of debt the United States government is generating through quantitative easing, printing money out of thin air, and that act in itself is raising concerns domestically here, but also among investors from overseas. So the question to us is, what will investors think of the weaker dollar? So if you are an investor, what would you think of the weaker dollar? And could this explain why, for example, countries like Russia, China, and the other 23 are moving away from the US dollar? Could this also explain why the European Union Finance Committee is considering its options to strengthen the euro to become more independent from the US dollar? Those are legitimate questions that Andrea, thank you so much. Appreciate your super sticker. I want to say thank you all, guys, for your support. It means a lot. But this is the idea. Those are legitimate questions to ask. It's because where we're seeing the trend, and I watch carefully, I keep up on what's going on around the world. It's, like, for example, what's going on right now in Solomon Islands, which we will talk about that at some point. It's concerning to see the trends as they are moving. So Russia's decision to ask for rubles, India's decision to say we will trade with Russia in rupees, Saudi's consideration of accepting the Chinese yuan, the 23 other countries in the process of preparing their own financial infrastructure to bypass the SWIFT system altogether. All this is an indication for what lies ahead. Once again, you don't have to be genius to figure this out. And I know our viewers, you guys are smart enough to know, and I don't say it to make you feel good. That's not me. I'll say it because that's what I mean. You guys are brilliant and smart enough to know and to read between the lines and see where the trends are headed. And this is especially for if we have an American viewers here. James, thank you very much for your super sticker. If we have Americans audience watching this, it's a greater concern for us here at home than it is for overseas. Because in a simple term, we could become poor overnight if the value of the dollar drops or the dominance of the US dollar became irrelevant or another SWIFT system is created to bypass the dollar altogether. And it's a big concern. This is why I talk about out of concerns. This is not about pointing fingers. I don't point fingers. I don't do that kind of, it's a game. You don't point fingers. You speak from your heart. You speak the truth. And let it be. You guys reach your own conclusions. I am not here to influence anybody. I am not here to advocate for anything. All I'm doing is provide. Barry, thank you very much for your super sticker. Appreciate it. I'm here just to provide the argument on both sides for you to see both ends and you reach your own conclusion. Once again, if you are an American watching this, you better prepare yourself for what lies ahead, because the demise of the dollar is inevitable. And I don't see this lightly. It's because we can't be living in a bubble. Till when? That bubble is going to burst one day. This is where the big concern is. So let me, before I ask you guys the question, let me just comment on the question that I had last time. And yes, some of you might have misunderstood my question, and I did it not intentionally, but specifically I put it that way. I know, of course, Asia is big. And if I am to talk about Asia, am I talking about Central Asia, Southeast Asia? Of course, I didn't specify that way, but I put it in terms of general term, Asia as a whole. That's what I meant by that. So, Iron Horse, thank you so much for your super sticker. Appreciate it. That's the reason why I put that question that way. Because here's the thing. If I am to think in terms of the question that I put and link it to what we talked about today, you think about ASEAN, an economy of $2 to $3 trillion economy that soon will bypass the European Union. Now you could see why the Eurozone is thinking in terms of maybe it is time for us to start prepositioning ourselves for the new financial system. As I always say, guys, the wealth has already shifted from the west to the east. Asia is going to be the next hub. Asia is going to be the center of the new geopolitical global landscape. And when I say Asia in general term here, and if I am to go into more depth in this, usually I will focus on Euro-Asia. And I did enough research on it. And I will be able to even tell you why that is, historically speaking. So this is the reason why I said what I said. So that question was mainly for the entire region, Asia as a whole. And this is why I'm now paying close attention to what's going on in Solomon Island, and with Australia sending its own sort of, it says we were invited. Australia, it's petty. It's petty of Australia to even be acting in that manner. That they just, I feel like it's just chasing its tail. They have no clue what they are doing. Anyway, that's a conversation for another day, and we will get into it at some point. So, but that was my point with that question. And I do appreciate your answers, because there were some really great answers. Most of them, I read them all. I didn't get a chance to answer everybody, of course, but they were very insightful. So I truly thank you for sharing your knowledge as well. So here is my question for the day. And before I leave here, I need to let you guys know about Friday. Remember to join us for live stream, not on this platform, on the other platform. I'm going to post something for you guys tomorrow. So I hope you can join us for that. And there are some of you who are our members. Tomorrow we're going to be doing live Q&A with our members. And for you, if you are interested, that's where we do deep dives on the issues that we can talk about here. You know why? No need to be the dead horse. Check out our geopoliticsinconflict.com. Once again, geopoliticsinconflict.com for our membership there. So now, let's go with the question of the day. Actually, I have two for you guys. I always like to have two. And once again, the whole purpose of these questions, guys, that's how I communicate with you. It would be nice if we all can sit down over a cup of coffee or a beer, whatever, and have a conversation. It's just that, unfortunately, that's not the case. And we got to be realistic with where things are. I am so sorry, I can't pronounce the name in Chinese. But thank you so much, CA. Thank you so much for your super sticker. I appreciate it. Your support, guys, means a lot. I just want you to know this. And on behalf of the entire team, we truly mean it. So we're doing our best with whatever we have, the resources, and we're moving along. It's getting there. It's getting there. So, all right, let me ask the questions before I take off here, because I have to go do some other tasks. So here are the two questions. First one, to what degree will the multipolar system impact the US dollar? Second question, will the US go to war to maintain US dollar dominance? I repeat the two questions. To what degree will the multipolar system impact the US dollar? And the second question, will the United States go to war to maintain the dominance of the US dollar? I want to say thank you guys for being here. If this is your first time, by the way, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Yes, some of you have mentioned that. How come, Dr. Wu, you guys are not? Yes, there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I don't care, because at this point, I don't know, because it's something out of my control. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't get into the algorithm and make it jump the numbers. But your support means a lot. That's all it matters. And what it matters the most is also having an interaction with you, intellectually one. That is the most important thing, because it's you and I and all of us that we can further the discussion in a civilized manner in which we can expand the discussion. It's because if we are to ask questions, we need to ask questions that matter the most. I truly enjoy being with you guys. I hope you find this information very useful. As always, guys, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.